So, as a way of introduction, I'm Dr. Patricia Mills, a medical doctor, functional medicine practitioner, health transformation expert, and massively passionate champion for women's health, for your health. And today I'm going to share a little bit about how I came to be here. Because I started off as a specialist in physical medicine rehabilitation, medical doctor, Western trained. And now here I am helping women create the change in their lives that they need in order to get the health that they deserve and desire. So I want to say hi to Susan. Hi, Susan from Vancouver Island. That's wonderful. Thanks for joining, Susan. It's so great to interact with you here today. So I've been reflecting on how to best go about this, because in order for me to tell you about my hormone imbalances, I have to be able to share with you some very personal health information. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's totally worth it if I can help one woman out there get on track with their health, be inspired and empowered to start making the changes, even recognize where they're at, because sometimes we don't recognize where we're at. And then after the recognition, to be able to go in and make the changes that need to be made in order to be in the vibrant health that you were either born with and lost at some point in time, or you're still in your vibrant health and you want to maintain it over time. You see people around you getting sick and you don't want to get sick, like maybe your parents or loved ones or family members, or maybe you were born with a health condition and you're curious as to what vibrant health might look like. And we know that 95% of health conditions are not genetically determined. They are due to an interaction between what's happening in the environment, so what you're eating, drinking, putting on you, in you, your thoughts, your upbringing, the toxins that you're being exposed to, interacting with your genetics. Okay, so if we can fix the environment, we can change the way that the genetics, your DNA is being used by the body. Okay, and that's the emerging field of epigenetics, which means that you have the power to do all the things with your health. Okay, your body regenerates itself every 7 years, which means that you have the power within 7 years to create an entire new body. So, what are you doing right now to create the body that you desire? And in order to kind of get you an understanding of what it took me to get to that point, because I feel like I'm at that point now. There's a few little things that I'm working on, but it's like little minor kind of things. I'm really grateful that I'm at that stage, but it's taken me a few years, and I want to make that transition for you faster and shorter. I don't want it to take so darn long for you to get to where you want to go. It will take a little while, but I want to shorten that time for you exponentially. Like, I want to help you make a quantum leap. So in order for me to explain to you, I'm going to go back in time and I'm going to tell you about what I knew and what I didn't know, because I need you to understand that looking back, like when I was experiencing my life, I didn't understand what was going on and how things that were happening in my life were contributing to problems with my hormonal balance. And I'm going to layer it in with the understanding that I have now, looking back on those times, so that you can see. And as you listen to this, not everything will be relevant to you specifically, but you're going to find some kind of threads of truth, things that resonate within you, like, oh yeah, I can see that in my life. I can see that in my life previously or currently, and start to feel that inside of you, because I want to help women who are silently suffering. Okay, and so what do I mean by silently suffering? I mean, some of us are in such like a condition that we are angry all the time, irritable, lots of outbursts and temper, like, you feel like you're just angry all the time, right? And you don't quite understand why. That's not the silent part of it. The silent part of it is the part that's inside, where you just know that something's not quite right with your health, right? Something's not quite right, and if you go deeper into that, it's kind of scary. Like, you're scared. You're like, you're angry that something's not right with your health, and then if you go deeper into that, you're scared because you're like, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to have pain. I don't want to end up having these conditions I see other people having, or that I'm currently experiencing, or that my parents are suffering. Because deep, deep, deep down inside, we all have a fear of pain and death, right? We don't want to die, and we don't want to suffer while we're alive and be in pain. And we're seeing a lot of that in this world these days. And then the other level of that is our children and our loved ones. So if you have any children, or if you're responsible for any loved ones, you want to feel like you know exactly what you need to do to help them. And not having that knowledge can feel so scary sometimes, like a sense of deep unease, right? So I want to start to get at the core of that fear and unease by providing you with knowledge that will help you um, pop out of that state of being, so we can start to heal together. Okay, just looking at the comments. Oh, hi Bev from Newfoundland, thanks for watching. That's awesome. So lovely to connect with you here today as well. Okay, so going back in time, reflecting on my story, what happened was we all experience like things in our lives in our childhood that create a little bit of stress in our lives, right? And you can say like childhood adverse events or things like that. You could have had a lovely upbringing like I did. I had a really lovely upbringing. I had parents who loved me and supported me and thought I was just like the most special person in the world. And my stress in when I was younger was that we moved from Brazil to Canada and back and forth various times. So I had to move countries, and within a country I had to move schools. So there's a lot of change and instability. And I remember as a child feeling that deep sense of anxiety in the body. Like I remember that feeling in the body, feeling so uncomfortable, like butterflies in the stomach, a clenching in the chest, like a tightening of the jaw, like just that kind of feeling. And I realized like I didn't like that feeling, and but I didn't know how to cope with it. Like my parents were quite young when they had me, and even so, like they weren't taught, like our parents weren't taught how to teach us to recognize and deal with our emotions. So I remember at one point making a decision that I wasn't going to feel this anymore because I didn't like the feeling of it anymore. So I repressed it. I pushed the feeling down and I disconnected my mind from my body. And I didn't consciously do it. It was just like a way, it was a coping mechanism. It was like I needed to survive. I didn't want to break down into like a crying puddle every day because I was either in a new country or in a new school or in an unfamiliar, uncomfortable environment, and everything was amplified. So what did I do? Instead of like expressing it, I repressed it. I repressed it deep, deep down inside. So that was the beginning of my hormonal imbalance, because what I didn't know at that time and what I know now is that one of the hormones that we easily, like the portal into hormonal imbalance for many of us, is through the hormone cortisol. So the hormone cortisol is our stress hormone. And when our stress levels go up, it can be perceived stress, like I feel stressed out, or it can be like I was as a child, where my body was stressed out but my mind was disconnected from my body. So I was like, I'm fine, everything's great, I'm living my childhood, I'm playing and I'm reading and I'm doing all the things, like I'm in sports. But there was this deep, deep level of anxiety and stress down in there, and it was my cortisol levels were just ramping and ramping up, high and high and high. So I was in a state of kind of what one would call hypercortisol state. And what happens is that over time, that starts to imbalance your estrogen and testosterone and progesterone, because they're like little kids doing ring around the rosy, pockets full of posy. They're all like running around together. But when one falls, or one, like kind of becomes dysregulated, they all fall down, they all eventually become affected. So I was getting into the state, so I started to notice things in my health, and I didn't link it of course at the time, but now I understand, is that I was having issues with hormonal imbalances. I was having a dermatitis like around the nose. I was getting like really irritable and kind of like mood swings, like pretty bad mood swings around my period sometimes. And my periods were like, they came on pretty early and they were pretty heavy. And but they were okay, they were manageable, it was actually not that bad. So everything was like, so I was having some problems with skin rashes, and my mood was like not the best. I would find myself kind of really low mood at times. But I was a survivor, so I just kind of keep going. And then I also got meningitis. So I got bacterial meningitis as a child. My immune system was probably very, very low. I was getting frequent ear infections, and I eventually got bacterial meningitis. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks with IV antibiotics. And what I didn't know now then, and I know now, is that antibiotics, oral or IV, really kill our microbiome, which is the community of organisms in our body that we coexist with. It's a symbiotic relationship, and if you have the right community, they support you. If you have the wrong community, because certain community members have been killed off by antibiotics, you can start to experience problems in your health. And I teach a lot of that in my program, the Wild Collective. That's a very own conversation. But what I know now is that we didn't know at the time, like medicine didn't know at the time that this happened. And now, when you know that this happens and you're on antibiotics, you would do things like nurture your microbiome, like eat a certain way for a period of time, avoid certain things for a period of time in terms of foods and drinks. You would take probiotics for a period of time, certain probiotics. So you would do this whole protocol to heal your gut. And I didn't know. So here I was entering my teens with like hormonal imbalances from stress in the body and from the antibiotics I had taken. And then in my teens, I made the decision to go on oral contraceptive pills. I was interested in becoming sexually active, and I didn't want to get pregnant, so I got the oral contraceptives and I started taking them. So I took them for about 6 years. And little did I know, like again, I didn't know then, but now I know, is that as I was taking these contraceptive pills, they were doing a few things that research now shows to be the case. They were causing injury to my gut. They were causing a level of inflammation in my gut. They were causing inflammation in my body. They were changing the way that my brain was talking to my ovaries. So, an actual brain to ovary change in communication. They were causing changes in my thyroid function. They were depleting slowly but surely certain minerals and certain vitamins, like vitamins B6, B12, zinc gets depleted, magnesium gets seriously depleted. And there's very reasons as to why this happens, but essentially, your hormones kind of change, the chemistry of your body changes, and you're not actually having a real bleed, like a real period when you have it. It's a totally different game when you get a period on your oral contraceptive. So, anyways, and that can happen also with the IUD and with patches and injections. Like certain variations of that dysfunction can happen with these medications, because the ones that are being offered to us right now for that purpose, from our physicians, they don't understand this. It hopefully will become common knowledge one day, but they are not human bioidentical hormones. They are like pregnant urine from a pregnant mare, a female horse, or one that's made in the laboratory that actually is not like our own progesterone, a progestin, which is not like progesterone, and that causes a problem with the body. Like the liver doesn't quite know what to do with these hormones, and the liver is what's responsible for detoxifying our own natural hormones, but it doesn't know what to do with these synthetic hormones. It doesn't do it as well, so it starts to create this like buildup and like overwhelm of the body, and it just sets you up for like being a bit of a mess. And that is covered up while you're on it, because you're getting this like external flow of hormones. And then I decided at the age of 21 that I just wanted to stop. I knew there was something inside of me that understood that something wasn't quite right, and so I stopped taking it. And after that, things started to go very, very badly. So I realized now, I didn't know then, that I had post-birth control syndrome, where because of the nutritional deficiencies and the buildup of the synthetic hormones, the non-human hormones, the damage that had occurred to my gut over time, like the combined damage from the stress, because stress also damages the gut through the brain-gut interaction, the antibiotics, the hormones. I started to get really bad problems with my period. So it was like a crescendo, like it was getting worse and worse over time, but I started to get heavy hemorrhagic periods. They were so painful. I would bleed out, like, we're in the too much information zone, but again, I just want you to understand how terrible this was. I was writing my physical examination specialty test in Ottawa. So everybody flies in from across the country. You're already a medical doctor, but now you're specializing in physical medicine rehab, and you train for 5 years. 5 years of training. I was preparing for, and it was like all culminating on this exam. So I flew in, rented a hotel room like for a couple of days to get acclimatized and with my sleep patterns, practicing the exam. It's like a practice. It's like a real life, like there's actors where you pretend that they're patients. Like it's high level stress, like very high, and you have to be on your game. The night before the exam, I got my period. I was up all night just in heavy pain and hemorrhaging, like blood. It was like so much blood, as usual. But I just remember this because I remember being like, this is not a good time for this. But isn't it interesting that I had spent like years of my life experiencing that and just thinking that was normal? And it's because it slowly crept up on me over time. I feel like, it's like the frog in the pot. If you ever heard that analogy before, it's like if you take a frog and you put it in boiling water, it'll immediately jump out. But if you put it in cool water and you slowly heat up the pot, it'll boil to death. It won't understand that it's actually in danger. That's what was happening to me. I feel like that's what's happening to a lot of women out there. And so and then I went the next day. I did the exam on pure adrenaline, like just like I gotta do this thing, even though I hadn't slept. I was in so much pain. And that night there was a party, and I like soaked through every single pad and tampon that I had. I soaked through my pants. I had to change my pants halfway through the party. I was hemorrhaging so bad. And I remember that at the time I was like, okay, that's enough. I'm done with this. But I was still in the medical paradigm, Western medicine paradigm, the old paradigm. And what I did was I went and I got an IUD because I understood that with an IUD, it would be like lower levels of the hormone, like, ideally just in the uterus. And it would get rid of my period, and I was done with my period. So I put the IUD in. Little did I know that it was a band-aid, and that the underlying maelstrom, like the storm of imbalances and gut disruption and inflammation and nutrient deficiencies and all those things were still going on in my body. I hadn't addressed those, and then the IUD was like helping the symptom, but was still contributing to the issue because the IUD does have its own hormones, similar hormones. The Mirena is what I had put on, and so the solution was not a solution; it was a band-aid, and I wasn't like clued into going into it deeper. And then what happened was that I was working as a specialist in physical medicine rehabilitation, spinal cord injury specialist, like very high level stuff on the ward, loving my job. And then I got the call from my dad that he had ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And it's a fatal disease with no cure. And I cried like for a week straight. I couldn't go into work. I was because I had worked with people with that condition, because I'm a specialist in physical medicine rehab, and we work with people with ALS after they get the diagnosis to help them. And so I've seen the whole progression of it. And so I lived the whole thing with him like in an instant, And and little did I know at the time that it wasn't just grief I was experiencing. My stress levels were going up and up and up and up because I didn't know how to deal with that grief, right? I didn't allow myself, like now I easily cry with it. And I'm so grateful for that, because I used to just I used to lock it in inside and I wouldn't let it out. And now I'm just like, I'll just let it out. If I feel like crying, I'm going to cry. Like, here are my tears, I'm human. Like, it's a beautiful human experience to have that kind of love for someone where you can feel the grief. And then what happened was I'm helping my dad, and I got super motivated at that point to dive deeper, because I was like, okay, here's a healthy guy with like no family history of ALS, Iron Man, so he exercised too much. I know he exercised too much. It was like too much for his system, coupled with the fact that he had gastrointestinal issues like chronic reflux. He had been on anti-reflux medications for years, and I didn't know this at the time, and I know now that causes nutrient depletion in the body, because the body cannot absorb nutrients when it's properly, and it cannot fight off infections properly when it's on this medication. That is proven. Like, you just have to look it up. It's the reason you should not be on that medication for more than 8 weeks. That's what it says on the medication description, by the way, if you open up that little paper that comes with it. So proton pump inhibitors, any kind of heartburn medication, you should not be on it for a long period of time. You have to figure out the root cause. My dad had his own root causes, which we didn't know at the time, and now I do know. And so my stress levels were going up and up, and I was going into the research. I was diving into the research because why? That was the only way I felt I had a sense of control. I developed as a young child the sense of like, I didn't like the sense of loss of control. So I did everything within my power to be in control. And that's why I went into medicine, because I felt like in there I could be in control. If I could learn enough, I could be in control. When my dad got sick, I felt like, oh my God, what is going on with this planet, what's going on in this world, that someone like him could get this disease that's so terrible and so fatal. I need to understand more. I need to learn more. I need to be back in control again, right? So back in control again. And my stress levels were going up and up and up. My hormone imbalances were getting worse and worse and worse. And what happened was I tried to get pregnant a few years after that, and I could not. And here I was eating what I thought was appropriate foods. I was exercising regularly. I was slim, like I was still slim at that time. And I was just like, why am I not getting pregnant? So I couldn't get pregnant, and then I got and then finally after 2 years of trying, finally got pregnant just before I was about to have in vitro fertilization, because I started to learn within those 2 years that what I was eating wasn't actually serving me very well. Like, you remember, I was going into the research for my dad. Well, I was eating like your standard American diet. I was eating what people said was healthy for you. So I was eating like whole wheat bread, brown rice, quick cooked quinoa. I was eating a lot of beans, like a lot of beans, which I realized was way too much. Shouldn't eat a lot of beans. Like, these things have to be consumed in small amounts. I wasn't properly preparing my beans. They need to be properly prepared. I wasn't paying attention to my food sensitivities. There were foods that I would eat and that would irritate me, and I started to understand that. So I did an elimination diet, and I discovered I had all of these food sensitivities to dairy, to wheat flour products, to gluten-free flour, actually, to eggs. And those were like the big ones at the time. And then so I cut those out of my diet. I really upped my nutrient density, like that whole variety, the rainbow of the vegetables, and then I came across like ancient traditions of cooking, ways that we learned for thousands of years to prepare our food so that they would not irritate our gut. I didn't realize that over the years I had been irritating my gut because I had been eating foods that were not properly prepared, like whole foods, but grains and vegetables and beans, nuts and seeds that were not properly prepared. So they were slowly but surely irritating the lining of my gut. And if you have a damaged gut, your hormones are imbalanced, and there's a huge interplay between hormone and the gut, which, again, I'm not going to get into here specifically, but in order to heal your hormones, you have to heal your gut and vice versa. But the gut comes first. You have to heal your gut first, and then the hormones come second, okay? And so I started to implement these things in my life, and what I noticed was I got pregnant finally, and then after the pregnancy, I went into a bit of a stress spiral, because with having a child, I felt like a total loss of control, and I was totally out of my comfort zone, and my stress levels went up again, and I was eating things, like not really paying attention to the fact that I was eating things that were not serving me, like flour. I would go to the store and get like a little cookie or pastry, and it became like an everyday habit. I was having dairy, all of these things. And I found that after I had my child, I started to like gain weight, and I just couldn't get the weight off. I was exercising like crazy. I was doing all the things, and now I know that it was a combination of eating the wrong kinds of foods for my body and over exercising, because the over exercising ups your stress, which ups your cortisol, and then you get into the whole hormonal imbalance. And through the fast carbs that I was eating, because I was like, being a mother is tough. I deserve to have my treats. So I was having like my little cookie and my coffee with the milk and all that stuff. And I was basically creating like a situation in my body where my body was just like, the hormones were totally out of whack, and I was starting to become really inflamed in my body. So the weight gain was from imbalancing my hormones through fast carbs. So the insulin hormone would go up, and through the stress hormone as well, and through inflammation, because when your body's inflamed. And I hadn't learned at that point yet about healing the gut from all of the hits that I had taken. So it's like a big wound from many little cuts, right? So there's a cut of stress, there's a cut of toxins from your foods if you're not properly preparing them. There's a cut from antibiotics. I had taken a lot of anti-inflammatories when I was having those really painful periods, and little did I know that those anti-inflammatories really destroyed my gut. And so it was like around the time that I was on maternity leave with my son, and I was like, you know what, this is not working for me. Like, I am done with this. I am sick of being sick. I don't know if anyone has ever felt this way, like sick of being sick. But basically, you get to a point where you're just like, I was ready to make a change. I didn't know what that change was, but I was like, I'm ready to make a change. So I went deeper and deeper and deeper into the research, like even deeper and deeper and deeper. It was like I was stimulated by my dad's disease, and I was even more stimulated, like additionally, like compounded with my own sickness and experience. And that's when I started to realize that I had to intentionally heal my gut. So I had to really change my food. I had to really do the elimination diet again, be very, very strict about it, really cut out the foods that weren't serving me. It was a matter of self-respect. It wasn't a matter of deprivation. It was like, I respect my body enough to not give it foods that doesn't serve it. Period. It's not restriction. I'm not dieting. I'm eating a food plan that serves my genetics and where I'm at right now. So I had to change that, like, for some people, like, when they hear elimination diet, they think of deprivation. When I hear elimination diet, I think of like self-discovery and self-nurturing. That's where I'm at with that, because that's what it did for me when I changed my viewpoint around it, right? When I started to look at it as self-respect and body positivity. And then I realized that I started reading more about the stress connection with the hormones, and I started working on my mindset, on myself, and deep inner work, and like reading lots of books about it. And I realized, I was like, oh my God, I'm totally mind body disconnected. I have so much stress inside. It's built up. It's like stuck in the tissues, right? Dr. Gabor Mate wrote this beautiful book called The Body Keeps Score. And I was like, holy, I've got so much score of stress stored in my body. So I started to do qigong, I started to do breath work, I started meditating every day. I meditate every day now, and it's like my medication. It's like, oh, and it's like the dose I need every day to make me chill for the rest of the day. And sometimes I need to top up the dose with another little meditation, which I'll do like in my infrared sauna. And so I was doing all of the stress reduction stuff and all the mindset work, a lot of mindset work, and then detoxification, because what I didn't realize is that when I was in hospital for that long, I was exposed to a lot of toxins. When I was when you're going to medical school, you have to get like a lot of injections with like a lot of vaccinations. And when I traveled around the world for a year, I got all the vaccinations. While they were necessary, and I'm very grateful that I got them at the time, because it gave me the opportunity to go to medicine, it gave me the opportunity to go around the world. What I didn't realize is that they all have like little micro doses of things that are purposely a little bit irritating to the body to help stimulate the immune response. But I was getting I had gotten massive doses of it because I had moved from Brazil to Canada and back so many times. You have to really vaccinate for that. And then going to medical school, traveling around the world. And my husband and I were like, yes, we will pay for every vaccine. So I had to detoxify the body. I also had mercury amalgams. And mercury, when it gets into the body, it competes with and fluorine, of course, in the water. But these minerals like mercury and fluoride and all these things, they compete with the body for receptors. So instead of having like your thyroid having thyroid hormone come in, it gets like clogged up by mercury, right? So I had to detoxify the mercury, and I did tests to show. But since then, I've done tests on like all of my clients, and I stopped doing them because everybody had it. Everybody had either mercury, aluminum, or both. So I just put everyone I work with on a mercury and aluminum detoxification protocol. I'm like, you got to do it. Yeah, you can pay the money to get the test, but just assume my children had it on their test, okay? Like these like very young 2-year-old, 4-year-old that's at the time. So just assume and do it. There's a gentle way to do it. And so I did the gentle detoxification, and I realized at one point that nutrition wasn't enough. I needed targeted supplements. So I went into supplements, and I started reading about them and how they interact with the human body. And then also like with the plant chemicals, as I did, I did the 5-day rainbow diet challenge, teaching you about how each color of the plants have their own special powers. So it was like very intentional nutrition coupled with very intentional supplementation coupled with very persistent and consistent stress reduction methods. And then I was very, very conscious about the books I was choosing. I was like, I will only read books that will teach me how to upgrade my mindset, that will teach me how to achieve the skill of happiness no matter what the external circumstances. And over time I learned that there is, I mean, I always knew this, but as a child, my dad was atheist and agnostic. And so I developed that approach. And while I'm not religious, I have become deeply spiritual, because from my scientific diving into the literature showed me, like, if you start going to quantum physics and metaphysics, there is an energy in the universe, period. There has to be. We wouldn't be here if there wasn't. And this energy flows through everything. It has to, because it wouldn't exist if it didn't, right? It's all part of the fabric of the universe. There's a fabric of the universe. Even where there's like dark matter, or like it looks like empty space, it's actually what's called dark matter. You just don't see it, but it's an energy that's there too. So everything is energy. And I started to realize over time that, this feeling of being alone, this deep feeling of being alone, was not warranted, because that energy flows through everything. It flows through us, in us, and that energy is positive. Why do I say it's positive? Well, one very simple example is that it's the energy that created flowers. Have you ever walked in a garden and looked at flowers and just thought to yourself, how is it possible that these flowers are just so perfect, right? It's because they were made by this beautiful, loving energy of the universe. So that is the inherent loving energy of the universe. Everything that you see that is not loving, it's not energy made. It's man made. It's human made through our through our own core wounds of the, like I was saying, the stress and the adverse childhood events, things that happen in our upbringing. We develop these conditionings over time, and whatever you see that's not beautiful, that's not pristine or perfect, is as a result of that. It's not a result of the energy of the universe. So I started to feel like connected to that energy and bring it into my life, and a combination of the meditation, qigong, breath work, and mindset, positivity, happiness, developing the skill of happiness all the time, and feeling connected to an inner source, has all really helped me to balance my stress hormone. And then living, and that's the mental, physical, that's a mental, spiritual side of things. From a physical perspective, I learned about how women, and men as well, but I'm going to focus on women here, we are connected to the moon. We are connected to the tides. Like, our body cycles on lunar. It's more pronounced when we're in our menstruation, but it's still there in menopause, because we are still bodies of water influenced by the moon. And you can see that it's very pronounced when we're menstruating, because it's a monthly cycle. And the more that you are in tune with Mother Nature, the more that you live in alignment with Mother Nature, the less stress your body experiences. The more that you separate yourself from Mother Nature, the more stress that your body experiences. So in the masterclass that I'm doing tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I go deep into how do you start to align yourself with nature so that your body doesn't experience the stress of being out of alignment. So there's that mental, spiritual stress I talked about with you, and now there's the physical stress that you can minimize through things like, when do you get outside to be exposed to the sun? How do you manage your hormones through the month? How do you eat through the month? Your eating changes. Your eating needs and cravings change through the month for a reason. How do you recognize them? What do you do with them? Right? So I hope that what I've imparted here today is a sense of a hero's journey. Okay, you are each a hero in your own story, a heroine. And each one of you have reached the stage where you are right now for a reason. It's everything has happened for a reason, good or bad. It's where you are right now. It's all accumulated here and now. And the question now is, are you willing to now be intentional on your journey? So rather than just kind of like having life kind of push you, so like the tides, like in the ocean, like if you're rudderless, you're kind of being batted around, and the ocean's just taking you where it's going to take you. But between there, like where you are and where you're going to arrive, you just feel like you're like this all over the place. Versus if you have a rudder and you know how to steer yourself, and you know where you want to go, and life is still going to take you there, so the destination is still the same. But wouldn't it be wonderful if the experience was one of being in the flow, of being in that state of like, of like being aware. So first you have to be aware that you're in the ocean. You have to be aware that you don't have a rudder. You need to be aware that you need a rudder to guide your boat that you're in. And here I am, making myself available to you to teach you. And sometimes it can feel frustrating, because sometimes it's like, I want all the answers now. And because there's so much information to be had, it can be overwhelming at times. And it's almost like a funnel where you're putting in the marbles, and sometimes it's like you feel like there's not enough. But just be patient. Like those drips and drabs of wisdom will come in, and slowly but surely your cup will be full of that wisdom through the funnel. It'll start to come in, and it'll fill and fill and fill and fill. And before you know it, you're going to have the knowledge and the wisdom that you need. Remember, knowledge is information. Wisdom is knowledge in action. So if you're at a point where you have a lot of knowledge, but you're not putting into action, that's the wisdom part. But for many of you, it's the lack of knowledge that you have. And here I am, I'm teaching you slowly but surely over time so that there's not a lot of overwhelm. Um, what happened was when I tried to teach women, so my friends started to notice that my health was really great. Like I lost the weight, I was effortlessly maintaining it, I was not working out like crazy, like I was I was not doing the standard American approach to health, and I was thriving in health, right? So they were like, can you teach me? So they would kind of come to me at separate times. So I'd meet up with that with one or two at a time, and I would try to teach them everything I knew. And one time it went into 2 hours, and it was still not enough. I was like, and I could tell, like, I was so passionate about it. The hours would just fly by, but I didn't have the structure to teach them. I could tell that what they needed was a structure, a way to give them the information at a certain pace, at a certain time, in a certain way, in a certain sequence, and with, like, the opportunity to ask questions in between, to be supported, to have like some reading material if they were interested in. So what happened was, when I heard about the Wild Collective, which is a program that's delivered, it was a program that was kind of dreamed up by and initiated by a naturopath, Dr. Michelle Paris in Oakville, and she started it. It's kind of like the same thing. She was wanting to teach her patients like what they needed to know about health, because she would do all the tests on them, recommend all the treatments, but they were not getting to where she wanted them to go, and she understood that it's because they were lacking the fundamental knowledge. Like, they couldn't do the wisdom without the knowledge. So she created this program, and she started to license out. And I approached her and I said, can I if I license this, can I put in my own information in here, because I've done a lot of research, there's a lot of things I'm really passionate about people learning about. And she said yes. So I signed up because it had the structure and support. I had never, like, I was still working in a medical doctor's office, right? Like in the hospital, being like the specialist consultant for people with spinal cord injury, multiple sclerosis, like all the things, right? Every neuromusculoskeletal condition, that's what I was in charge of. So to go from that to educating women online through programs was a huge leap. And I made the quantum leap by aligning myself with her program, and ensuring that I was able to put in my own information. So I created I created my slides, I gave it to her, she put it into the program that I would deliver, and here I am sitting in a space now where I can help women who reach out and they want to learn with me. And I have this 10-week program, the Wild Collective, which, by the way, this right now it's January 26, 2022. I have my next intake starting February. Every year I offer it 3 times, intake in February, April, and September. Okay, to one small group of women. So it's limited spots. And what I have noticed of the women who participate, and if you're watching this and you're a previous Wild Collective participant, please feel free to put in the chat what your experience of this has been. These women all come to me afterwards and they tell me that, like, they're either like, I never knew and now I know, and I'm noticing massive differences in my life, so thank you so much. Or I knew the information, but I had never truly put it into action in my life. And the way that you taught me this information actually allowed me to truly understand it, not just at an intellectual level, but on a deeper level. Because my superpower, I've been told, is the way that I teach things to people. It's like knowing what to teach and how to teach it. That's what I really bring to the table. So, um, there are women who have been like pursuing health for years, like in the health, like learning about health, watching health, reading health, but now not seeing the actual changes that they want to see. And so when they come out through the other side of the Wild Collective, they go, wow, like now I actually am seeing what I want to see, because you gave me the tools that I needed to actually action it out, and the information in a way that I needed to like sink it in so that I feel the need and desire to actually make the changes, right? And it's a thing of beauty, and I'm so proud of it. And then there were some women at the other end of it who were like, you know what, Patricia, I love this. I want to go deeper, 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 deeper. I want you to hold my hand. I want you to guide me. I want to have the one-on-one. I want to, and then I created Body Wisdom out of the need of that. So that's more like very much, that's like, very prescriptive, like giving you like a very targeted supplement protocol. And they're standalone programs. And what I love about the Wild Collective is that it gives you that foundation, that necessary knowledge that you need So that's just sitting there and available to you. And I provide PDFs. I provide a curated list of resources. You get the replay videos that you can watch for life. It's provided with a beautiful online platform that you can access at any time through your phone or through your computer. It's very, very beautiful and professional. And because like the journey of 1,000 steps begins with 1,000 miles begins with one step. Well, it's still 1,000 miles. I make myself available to Wild Collective graduates only, one time a month for a live Q&A. And the one, for example, for the group, by the way, ladies, it's coming up, right? Next Monday at noon is part of the package. So, I mean, like, people charge hundreds of dollars to be in a room with someone who has this kind of knowledge in the functional medicine space. And when you buy this 10-week package, you get me ongoing. So if something comes up in your life with yourself or family and friends, you can pop on for that monthly live Q&A and pick my brain, right? So it's a beautiful thing. And I really enjoy it. I look forward to every single session, and women, email me afterwards and say, wow, I really miss that dedicated time that I made for myself, that I dedicated to myself, that I prioritized myself, and sitting in that room with all of those beautiful women, because you get to know each other over time, and with myself there, it's beautiful. You feel supported. You feel like you're a part of a community. It's a sisterhood that grows. All of the ladies in the Wild Collective know each other from either seeing each other in the group or their names in the private Facebook group, and we all support each other. We put questions on. We answer each other's questions. It's really a beautiful community, similar to what we're creating here in Wild Wisdom, even deeper and deeper and deeper. And it really is like helping me feed my soul, because I understand that I'm meeting a need that the universe has right now for a woman like you. So these are now tears of gratefulness coming out. So I wanted to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your participation, and for your interest. And please, at any point in time, reach out to me, info@drpatriciamills.com, if you want to understand how is it that a service I offer might be in alignment with what you need. And you can direct message me if you're in Facebook group. And so I appreciate you. I thank you so much. I hope you have a really wonderful rest of your day, evening, or night, depending on when you catch this. And I also want to acknowledge Tessie. Thank you. Oh, Tessie saying, thank you for sharing your love, honesty, and vulnerability. Such a beautiful being. Happy to know you. Thank you. Thank you, Tessie. Thank you for taking the time to write such a beautiful message. It's such fuel for the soul, such inspiration for me to have women like you who are interested in your health and showing up like this for yourselves. Bev is saying, Bev is a Wild Collective graduate, and she's saying, experience like no other. Dr. Patricia has taught and continued to teach me so much and is bringing my health in line. This safe space is such an amazing and supportive group. Thank you, Bev, for bringing your shining light and love into the group. It has been such a joy and pleasure having you come into my life as a friend. All the women of Wild Collective and Body Wisdom really have filled the void that I didn't even know existed. So thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies, I love you. Mwah. Have a really wonderful rest of your day. Bye.